Now, being a single mom for your daughter for the first 6 years while teaching fourth grade must have been incredibly challenging. How did that period shape your perspective on literacy development in the home?
Well, when I was a little girl, we had to read aloud. Okay. We read aloud to my father often. He came from the South. He was from Virginia, where I'm not sure what he went through in terms of education, but I can tell from his parenting. I could also tell from my mother's parenting that, again, there was this underlying message. If you're Black and you live in America, you must be educated. You must be educated in order to thrive. And so we had to read aloud at home, like in a circle, reading. It was like a guided reading lesson. You got feedback. I remember learning the word abundance for the first time. The first time I saw that book was at home, not at school. And I mispronounced it. And then he basically coached me through the word. My mother would listen. If we didn't read right, she would say, go back, read that again, reread that again. And so it was expected that we had to read out loud and get feedback. So I basically did the same thing with my own child. My very early years prior to entering the public school system, I worked in daycares. In fact, I worked in 5 different daycares while I was an undergrad student. And so while I was an undergrad student, I would observe how mothers interacted with their 3 year olds, their 4 year olds, their 2 year olds, their pre K kids. And I learned a lot about, parenting styles, and I would analyze what I was reading in books against what I was actually observing in real time.
Real time.
And yeah, and so kids that had strong language skills, those kids were the kids that were reading already. And so I knew from having my background in early childhood education working and then my master's degree in early childhood education, I knew the power of language literacy before I gave birth to Nia. In fact, 2 weeks before I had Nia, I finished my master's degree. And so life at that time was difficult, I will say, financially, only because I was spending money paying, attorney's fees to try to get out of my first marriage. But there was this wonderful world of literacy right at home. Her room was decorated, it was print rich. She spoke early, read early. By 2 years old, she already knew her letters and her sounds by three, knew the letter names by two, the sounds by three. At that point, I started blending these CVC 3 letter words with her. And by the time she entered school, she was already a fluent reader. So she learned to read at home with me. So I know that if mothers knew how to coach their kids, we could have the same for many other kids out there.
That's
So I would say that I took what I went through from little Allison's perspective with being required to read aloud at home, get feedback, and then let's read that again, reread that again,
yeah.
and let's fix that. Did that sound right? Did that make sense? So this whole guided reading was happening at home. And then I implemented it as a mother and then later as a teacher.